Hi, everyone. Welcome into another podcast. I'm John. Pop is with me as well. And we're going to talk about, I guess you don't call it Selection Monday, but you call it Reaction Monday to Selection Sunday. We've got the OU men in the NCAA tournament, the OU women and the OSU women in the NCAA tournament. The OSU men, of all things, they get an NIT bid and they have a home game on Tuesday as well. And the TU women, ORU women, both playing WNIT, WBIT. So, Pop, we have a lot of teams that are going to be participating in postseason basketball, trying to chase championships here. And the obvious starting point is with the OU men. By the way, and we appreciate everyone tuning in. By the way, that is against two-time defending national champ UConn. It's an 8-9 game, and it's Friday night, 8:25 Central Time in Raleigh, North Carolina. I was expecting to see OU on the 10 line, and they get a 9, but they also get UConn. Your takeaway from this?
First of all, I think what we learned is that the SEC, we knew it was going to be highly valued, John, but how about even more than what we originally thought with 14 teams getting in? And, it was funny. I was watching the selection show, and my shock when North Carolina popped up first. But then when I saw Texas have the game in Dayton, that got the wheels turning. And I thought, you know what? Oklahoma might be on a higher seed line than what we had all originally thought. And that was kind of the process, I think, in the last couple of days there from their run in Nashville, in which they got beat at the last minute there by Kentucky. But yeah, the committee didn't really do them any favors with the 8-9 seed line in the first place. And then you get Dan Hurley and UConn right off the bat. I mean, welcome to the NCAA tournament for the first time as head coach of the Sooners, Porter. You get now not only one of the craziest head coaches in college basketball, but also one of the most successful ones.
Yeah, the best head coach in college basketball that came out of Hurley's own mouth earlier during the game during this season. Always, and every time I see his histrionics on the sideline, I think back to when Frank Haith was at Tulsa and UConn came in when they were the American, and this weird exchange between the two coaches. At first, I don't even think Frank knew what Dan Hurley was upset about. Yeah. I don't even know if Dan Hurley knew what he was upset about. Now, if UConn is a 5-point favorite, 4.5, 5-point favorite, depending on what you see, Dean Blevins said it on the Blitz last night, that if you had told Sooner fans that OU would be only a 4.5-point underdog to the two-time defending national champs and play them in the NCAA tournament, you would have been thrilled. I think you're still thrilled. You're relieved as much as you are thrilled, but there's a real opportunity here, Pop, because this is not the same UConn makeup as the last two seasons.
Yeah, I think my opinion is that point spread and line tells you a little bit more about North Carolina, about UConn than what it does Oklahoma. To me, I think your point is dead on the money. They are a team that you would put in the, and I can't believe I'm actually going to say this considering that they just won 2 national championships in a row, but they're a team that has a little bit of a disappointment factor to them. Now, they're going to be really good next year because as well as I do, they're going to pay to keep a lot of those young players that they had, and you could not continue to play at the level they had the last 2 years. But I think it says more about UConn than what it does Oklahoma. And to Dean's point on just being happy on that seed line, I mean, how many of us wrote off Oklahoma after the LSU loss, John? I mean, virtually everyone was like, oh, there's no way they're getting in now. They're going to have to win 2 games in a row. They're going to have to beat Missouri. They're going to have to beat Texas. Well, they did that. Then they got to win in the tournament, almost beat Kentucky. So, yeah, you go from there's no way they're getting in to now being on the 8-9 line. Like, yeah, I think you take that. It's just unfortunate your path is UConn and then potentially Florida, who might win the entire national championship.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're bound to have a cold shooting down at some point. Look, I think OU's got a chance. And I think Jeremiah fears that you have to have the best edition of him. And you'd love to have Sam Godwin back, at least to where he can give you some serviceable minutes. Wagi is extremely athletic. I think he really played well for them in the SEC tournament, but I don't know. Maybe now he's got time to think about it and how he needs to contribute, and sometimes that can mess with a guy's head. I'll go back to what you said before we move on to some of the other teams involved. You said North Carolina, yes, and they did get in. And at ORU's bracketology breakfast, which I was happy to be a part of this morning, every year we have Joe Lunardi, ESPN's bracketologist, in, and I just lobbed him a softball to start. Your overall thoughts? Did you nail the bracket? Your overall thoughts? And he said, I only got 2 wrong this year. He said, but I'm saying I got 1 wrong and the committee got 1 wrong. And then he proceeded to just rip the committee for putting North Carolina in over West Virginia and perhaps Indiana. But the look was kind of tough. Former TU AD Bubba Cunningham's been at North Carolina, has done a great job as their AD. But it puts that person in a really tough spot when you were on the selection show to talk about the process. And no, Bubba wasn't in the room. But as Lunardi said, he said, look, do you want to be those other 11 people who look at him when he comes back in and tells him, sorry, because, to me as well, if you say conference tournaments don't matter for a lot of teams, where do you really draw the line? Because I'm convinced what North Carolina was able to do in the conference tournament with a chance to beat Duke and what West Virginia did in losing their first game in the Big 12 tournament, that had an impact. It's probably not fair to West Virginia. I was really surprised that the Mountaineers did not get it.
I was stunned. If you go to bracketmatrix.com, I think the total collection of bracketologists they have, where they take all of them, is 111. All 111 had West Virginia in the tournament. All of them. Every single last one. That was not the case. I think only like 40 or something had North Carolina. And so it was stunning for everyone. And I'm like you, probably awkward for Bubba. I also, in a weird way, feel bad for him because Bubba, and the big to-do today was, hey, he got a bonus because North Carolina men's basketball made the NCAA tournament. John, we could scour the entire country for athletic directors that had similar type of bonuses. This just happened to be a perfect storm. Probably didn't belong in. And then the bonus information came out where he's making like 80. Well, there were 2 versions, 80,000 or 104, 106,000. It doesn't matter which one that is. It's just a perfect storm right now. And I feel bad for Bubba, mainly because we both have had a personal relationship with Bubba at one point in time. And I think he's fantastic at what he does. He's just caught in the crosshairs right now, even to the point where I watched a press conference today from the governor of West Virginia, who called out North Carolina and Bubba Cunningham and is suing and going after the NCAA for the lack of inclusion for West Virginia in the tournament.
Hey, listen, I would give pause to that because there's stuff that happens in those hills for sure. Yes. The happiest guy in the NCAA right now is the young man who had the lane violation for North Carolina in the ACC tournament where they had a chance to tie the game with Duke. All right, let's move quickly to OSU. Look, Pop, I'm sitting there in Kansas City. They play the first game of the tournament. They looked really bad outside of Connor Dow and then Pat Sumnick in a big loss, a blowout loss to Cincinnati. And I thought it was interesting afterward that Steve Lutz got the question, hey, so if you had an opportunity to continue, you want to continue? And he said, oh, yeah, I think this group of seniors deserves it. Well, not only did they get a bid to the NIT, and I know with the college basketball crown out there as well now, so there were more opportunities for some teams. But at 15 and 17, you're a 4 seed in the Dallas region, and you host Wichita State. SMU's the 1 seed, so you're on that side. But the fact that you're playing again, I think here's what I hope to see. That the guys who did not perform well against Cincinnati, and there were a lot of them in Kansas City, that they are determined to not end their careers like that, not have that kind of performance be their lasting impact. But you got a Wichita State team that, who knows, it's almost like those middle tier bowl games. It's whoever's more motivated for this stuff usually comes out on top.
Yeah, and I was just sitting here looking at just overall stats on it, and Oklahoma State has a better net. They're 95, Wichita State's at 134. But let's just run down the list here. Points per game. Less than a point separates the two. Opponents' points per game. It's like a 4-point difference between the two. Field goal percentage. They almost shoot identical. Opponent field goal percentage. There's a 3% difference in that. 3-point percentage, almost identical. Free throw percentage and on down. Rebounds per game. These are 2 almost identical teams. And to your point about, hey, who just wants to continue playing? deeper into the season to kind of give yourself a better feeling and what is your motivation factor. That's the number one thing to me always with the NIT. And yeah, it might not be for $1 million like the Crown, but it's still at least a known, if I can throw the air quotes out, a known tournament that a lot of these guys have at least been aware of for a while. But yeah, what now it's like, what are you playing for? You're playing for each other and hopefully playing for the pride that you still have because you didn't quite have the year that you expected.
And playing to support all the people who are affected by the wildfires, including your own assistant coach, Scott Sutton. He and his family lose their home. I mean, it's, Dave Hunziker and I were trading texts, and Dave, obviously the play-by-play guy that I work with on OSU broadcast, and he said, you look back and the galvanizing point for so many tragedies, it's involved, unfortunately, both basketball programs in the past, but other ways, this is another opportunity, and then people seem to rally around it, and hopefully you get that type of inspired performance from the team on Tuesday night. Women's basketball, you have 4 teams, all 4 in-state that are actually playing. Very quickly on OU women, they're going to host. They got the 3 seed, not unexpected with the strength of the SEC, and they play Florida Gulf Coast Saturday afternoon, 1:30, and then they play the winner of the Caitlin Clark-less Iowa, and I'm blanking on the other team that's there. But so you look at their path, they've got a really good shot at making the Sweet 16. OSU's the 7 seed, same region, and they take on South Dakota State, who just beat ORU in the Summit League tournament final, and is a very, very solid team. But they have to go to Connecticut. And if OSU's women Saturday 2:30 can win, then they've got to play UConn on their home floor. Yikes.
Yeah, not necessarily the matchup that you would hope for them in the second round if you take care of business in the first. But everyone craves an opportunity at this point in the year, and I know JC was talking about prior to what the type of seeding that they got, and probably right in line with what a lot of people expected on that. So yeah, tough road. Oklahoma does, as you mentioned, get to host there. And the thing with me about just sticking with the Sooners for a second was, I think that they proved that they were kind of at that second tier inside of the SEC. And that second tier is really good because the only one that's above you is the Texas, South Carolina tier, which is just unbelievable. The elite of the elite in this year, 2025 version of women's basketball. They're good, and they have the potential to create some problems. And I wouldn't be shocked if Oklahoma State doesn't give UConn a run for their money either.
Well, if you happen to pull off the upset of upsets and both of these teams win 2 games, then guess what happens? We've got Bedlam in the Sweet 16, which would be awesome, except that it wouldn't happen anywhere close to us.
Of course.
You'd have to travel. I mean, it's like those old days, Pop. You and I remember this, when Jenks and Union would meet in the state football championship game every year, and you play it in Stillwater.
Yeah.
Couldn't play there. Now, TU helped out in more recent years, but I can remember that very well. Should mention TU in the WNIT, ORU, Kelsey Music's team in the WBIT. They traveled to play Missouri State Thursday night Thursday at some point in Springfield. You can say it doesn't matter. Well, you can sit there and say it and say, okay, well, yeah, you're not playing for the championship of all championships, but if you're a competitor and you aren't just worn slick by the season and would rather have spring break, then this is kind of what you play for. You want to be one of those teams that wins your final game.
Listen, for the it doesn't matter crowd, and I hear this a lot with bowl games as well. Okay, it might not matter to you, but it matters to every single person that's in that locker room that has an opportunity to go out and either play for the last time or to continue to play with some of their best friends and have the best memories ever. So it absolutely matters, and it matters to the universities as well. So I've never really been in that crowd at all about it doesn't matter. I've always been of the opinion, like, if it doesn't matter to you, then don't watch. But it matters to some people. And I think with the level of play that we saw from the women's programs around here, we kind of owe it to them a little bit to have, the attention that they have on them right now in continuing to play in the postseason.
No doubt. We'll wrap it up with this. I hadn't told this story yet, but last Tuesday in Kansas City, before OSU's game, the first game of the day. You had the teams that weren't playing until Wednesday getting a few moments or about 45 minutes in the arena to get shots up and everything. And we were there while West Virginia was going through it, back to them. And so we keep our eyes a little bit on Javon Small because he played for OSU last year, first team All Big 12. He took over and helped that team really have some offensive success when Tucker DeVries, the head coach's son, went down with injury. And Javon just really shined. And, he wasn't always in the best of moods when he was here at OSU. Could have had something to do with his girlfriend not being anywhere close, and then, the tough part of the season kind of wore on him a little bit. But he got done with his getting his shots up and everything. They had to clear the floor, and he ran across the floor to come over and shake hands with Dave and with me and to say hi. And we had a chance to tell him how proud we were of him and how happy we were for him with the first team All Big 12 and everything. And just it was just a great exchange because sometimes you don't know how these guys view things once they're gone. And he was great. I just hope he doesn't look back on that exchange as the reason why West Virginia went cold in the second half, and then what happened has happened. But just a tremendous young man that we were very happy about. So with that, we will wrap things up. For Pop, I'm John.
One more. Hey,
you got one more.
Yeah. You got to give me someone that you're keeping an eye on in the tournament. There has to be someone. You spend a very large portion of your schedule here after football season is over, seeing a lot of different teams. So is there a team, in your opinion, that we should be keeping an eye on?
I'll just say this because it surprised me when I saw the seed line. I hadn't seen much of Louisville during the regular season.
Yes.
But the job Pat Kelsey has done with the modern day basketball, we're replacing the entire roster type of thing. For them to be the 2 seed in the ACC tournament, if I remember that right, they were the 2, and they lose to Duke in the conference tournament championship game, and then they pop up as a 9. With the season they had down, that one really surprised me. Now I don't go as deep into the metrics as a lot of guys. I just know what I saw, and what I saw was a team playing their third game in 3 days against a really good defensive team, even without Cooper Flagg, and hanging with them for a large portion of that game. I think they're underseeded. I think, and I don't want to say they're going to knock off John Quisnell, Gonzaga grad, who's been here at News on 6 forever, done a tremendous job. I'm not going to say they're going to knock off Gonzaga because I don't want to get Q upset with me. But I think they've got a good chance of doing it. And if they do that, look out for them in that second game against the 1 seed.
Yeah, I'm with you. They landed on the 8 seed. The thing with them, the turnaround that they had, because they were terrible last year. And then to do what they did in the ACC, and that's why I know the SEC was weighted so heavily, but the ACC and the rankings and the data points that the committee was using seemed to be a little bit all over the place. That one made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. And my one that I'll just say, keep an eye on in the first round. Now, I'm a 80s, 90s punk, so I always have visions of grandeur in my mind about the Fab Five, and I was fascinated by all of that. Same way I was fascinated by UNLV for some weird reason. But Michigan always has this little extra space in me for some reason. I think, though, their run to the Big Ten, they look dog-tired at the end of that. And now they're playing UC San Diego, who, if you look, John, is, I think, in the top 40 of every single metric that is out there. And that is one that I would not be surprised at, that if you do not see an upset. And guess what seed line that falls on? The famous 12-5. So that's just one to keep an eye out on for me.
Love that. Love that. All right. And to all of you who were dealing with wildfire issues or storage unit issues, whatever, just like Pop, we hope everything's going well. Yeah. Pop, I know you've got some work to do later this week, but we appreciate you watching. We'll be back when we have more good stuff to talk about. So for Pop, I'm John. We'll see you next time.